I titled today's sermon, Racism Without Racist, but I think there ought to be a subtitle to this one that says the Lamaze sermon, because I need to ask you to be aware of the people around you today. If any of them hear something that makes them so mad that they forget to breathe, you should catch their eye, make eye contact with them and remind them that they should remember to breathe. The scripture passage that we just heard read from 1 John has the potential, if it's read by someone that doesn't change the words, it has the potential of sounding really sweet. One of those nice passages that you might see in needlepoint in your grandmother's living room. Beloved, let us love one another, because love is from God, and everyone who loves is born of God and knows God. I mean, that's a Sunday school passage of Scripture if you've ever heard one. But John is not trying to be especially sweet. In fact, he's trying to be rather confrontational, because he backs up this injunction by also citing the opposite. That is, whoever does not love does not know God. That's not something that many of you would be comfortable hearing me say to anyone. And you're all accustomed to me saying things that are confrontational and controversial. But you would not applaud me saying to the Council of Churches that where they fail to love others, that they are being frauds. You would not be happy to hear me deriding other religious groups that are not as concerned about social justice as we are, for me to tell them that they were not really Christians. But John is striving to be very clear, and he uses a word in this text that even our starkly partisan politicians don't want to say. Newt Gingrich says it, but others don't want to say it. John says, those who say, I love God, and hate their brothers or sisters are liars. For those who do not love a brother or sister whom they have seen cannot love God whom they have not seen. Now, we try to get our children not to call people liars. We try to let politicians off. Politicians are able to say, I misspoke. You know, when we confront them, they're able to say, I misspoke. Late last month, when Senator John Kyle said that Planned Parenthood spends 90% of their budget performing abortions, when he was confronted by the mathematical fact that Planned Parenthood spends 3% of their money on abortions, he explained himself by saying, I did not intend that to be a factual statement. Now, you're given a speech on the floor of the United States Senate, but he feels like we should all just understand that it's just exaggeration, hyperbole, even though he's trying to put numbers on it. You see, I would like to be more polite. I would like to never call someone a liar, and I am willing to do that. I just need something from them. I need them to stop misspeaking and stop saying things that are not factual statements. But I take the title of the sermon from an incident that took place in March when a federal judge in Montana, Judge Judge Cebull, emailed a racist cartoon from his courthouse email to some friends that depicted President Obama as a child asking his mother why he is black and she is white. In the cartoon, Obama's mother tells him that he is the product of a sexual encounter she once had with a dog. The judge added the line to the email, hope this touches your heart as it touched mine. Now, I'm not the least bit surprised to find federal judges or anyone in any other high-ranking office who's just personally stupid. I mean, I'm not surprised by that anymore. But I draw my sermon title from the apology that Judge Cebull issued when he was called on this horrible racist joke. Once it hit the media, the judge said that it was stupid and inappropriate, but he added that even though the cartoon was racist, that he was not personally bigoted in any way, that he's not a racist. You see, the cartoon is racist, but not the guy who thought it was funny, not the guy who said it touched his heart, not the guy who emailed it from his bench to his friends who no doubt are also not racist, but who would enjoy a joke that said that our president is half dog. Now, if you're sitting around any of our black church members, you want to make sure that they're still breathing, because I've got a couple more things to say. The only people who are called racist these days are the people who speak out against racism. A black member of the media or the clergy who makes a public statement about racial discrimination is immediately accused of trying to divide the public along racial lines. But this federal judge in Montana, who is supposed to represent fairness, a federal judge is really supposed to be someone that you can trust to hold the scales, the balance of justice, and to be completely fair. He calls the president the son of a dog because his father was African, and then looks straight into the TV cameras and claim that he's not a bigot. But once you can claim that there is racism, but there's not actually a racist, then racism becomes socially invisible, when in fact we know it's actually getting worse. I've not said anything publicly about the Trayvon Martin killing in Florida in February because it seemed to me that the media was so full of misstatements and non-factual reports that I wanted to wait and let it kind of settle into what were actual facts. I don't know who threw the first punch in this confrontation between Trayvon and George Zimmerman. It may be that Zimmerman was actually in danger. It may be that he was losing a fight. But what we know for a fact is that a large white man who was carrying a gun when he shouldn't have been chased down an innocent black kid when he'd been told by the police not to pursue him. The kid's trying to get away from him, and the black kid ended up dead. And Zimmerman has, through friends and counsel, insisted that he's not a racist, that this was not about race. But you can bet that it was about race from the start to the finish. It was about race on both sides of the equation. Forget about both Martin and Zimmerman as particular individuals. Think about race, especially in middle-class neighborhoods in the South. Young black men run from white men because they have reason to be afraid based on nothing but race. White men are suspicious of black men because they have bought into the racial stereotype, and all that they will ever let themselves see is confirmation of their racist bias. They don't let themselves hear anything that contradicts it. All they're willing to hear is what confirms their fearful racist bias. So yeah, an overly zealous neighborhood watch volunteer who is a white guy with a gun will let his racist fear do the thinking for him when he sees a young black man in the neighborhood whom he does not personally know. Now, I don't need to see Zimmerman on death row to make me feel better, but I will not tolerate him telling me that he's not a racist. And you cannot tell me that if the roles had been reversed, if Martin had chased an unarmed Zimmerman, if a young black man with a gun had chased a middle-aged white man through the neighborhood and shot him, that Martin wouldn't have been arrested on sight, and not 2 months later after a huge public media outcry that eventually got Zimmerman arrested. We have wanted to believe that the election of a black president was a sign of the end of racism in America. But while that was a huge step, and I wept the night that he was elected, it was a huge step, and I don't want to downplay that at all. We cannot say enough great things about the fact that we finally did it. We did elect a black president. But the fact that we elected a black president seems to have been like pouring gasoline on the remaining flames of racism. We get one step forward and two steps backward. As most of you know, I raised an Asian daughter here in this city that is 96% Caucasian. And I always went the extra mile when Valerie was a baby to have Asian dolls and Asian coloring books and Korean clothing in our home. But when I took her to the movies, all the little princesses in the Disney movies were white. Even the ones that were only half human. I mean, the part that wasn't fish was white. The human part's always white. After she was too old to be interested in Disney movies, we got an American Indian heroine, and then we got an Asian heroine, and finally, very recently, a black princess named Tiana in The Princess and the Frog. So you think maybe things are getting better. Maybe Disney's wising up. Maybe they understand that girls of all colors need to have heroines that look like them. But when Disney decided to produce Valentine's candy for kids this year, 2012, they packaged a princess series of candy for Valentine's. And the princess from Sleeping Beauty, very white princess, her candy is flavored vanilla. Tiana, and I know you're going to think that I'm going to say chocolate, but it wasn't chocolate. Tiana's flavor was watermelon. Watermelon. Now, that's not Valentine's Day 1962. That was 2 months ago in February. What I'm telling you is that you don't get racism without racists. You have to be carefully taught. That's why I asked Sean to sing that song today. You have to be carefully taught from childhood to hate all the people that your family hates, to be prejudiced against people for associations that are grossly unfair. Out west, we've been overhearing a year-long drumbeat out of Arizona about illegal immigration. And the media has been full of misstatements and non-factual accusations about how our prisons are filling up with these illegal immigrants. Now, here's a fact you are not likely to hear in the news, ladies and gentlemen. Illegal immigrants commit crime at a lower rate than citizens. Illegal immigrants, discounting the fact that they cross the border illegally, commit crime, drunk driving, theft, assault, commit crime at a lower rate than the citizens of the United States that particularly already live in Arizona. So if Arizona's governor is really concerned about crime prevention, she should have citizens shipped south of the border and bring more illegal immigrants into Arizona, and that fact alone will lower the crime rate in Arizona. Now, she would tell you that she's concerned about crime. I'm telling you, I'm concerned about math. She doesn't get it. The facts aren't there. Those brown people crossing the border coming into America are not the source of our crime problem. I can't say that it's racism on her part, the governor's part in Arizona. I can say that it looks like racism. I can say it sounds like racism. I can say the net effect of it is racist. Now, who am I kidding? It's racist. You know it's racist. You know it is. Friends, if you'll indulge me just a moment longer, I'd like to tell you a story from Hasidic tradition. There was a rabbi that was working with some students. And the way that the rabbis taught in the Socratic method, they ask a question, definition of terms. You know, if you've read Plato, that's more or less the way that rabbis taught. So the rabbi asks his students, how do you know when the dawn has come? How do you define dawn? How do you know that it's passed from night to dawn? And one of the students volunteers, when you can tell in the distance the difference between a man and a tree walking down, when you see someone on the horizon. And another says that it's when you can tell the difference between a grapevine and a thorn bush. But not satisfied with any of their answers, the old rabbi says, The dawn has truly come when you can look into the face of any stranger and see that that person is your brother or your sister. And as long as you can't see the face of your brother and sister in the strangers you meet, it's still nighttime. So men and women, what I'm telling you is that it's still nighttime in America. There is racism. And as long as there's racism, then you can bet there are racists, because you have to be carefully taught. And it's not enough for you to just not be racist yourself. It's not enough for you to just be through with your own prejudice. It is for us to help the sun to rise. It is for us to bring the light that makes it clear that no matter whether the stranger's face is black or brown or yellow or red or white, that it is the face of our brother or our sister. So keep breathing, my friends.
You've been watching a progressive Christian video from the Community Christian Church of Springfield, Missouri. We encourage our viewers to donate to our efforts in feeding the homeless and hungry of our community. Write to us at reverenddray@aol.com for more information.